morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Gardina. I'm not an author, not even close. I'm an accountant. I work with high net worth families running their business offices. And I also work with Joe Solari to help authors and publishers run their businesses. You know, Joe's the idea man. I'm the one who keeps the trains running on time. So for each and every client, I come in and we organize them. We make their processes easier, more predictable, more reliable, and just, we keep it simple, sweetie, because you have more important things to do with your time than fiddle around with an Excel spreadsheet. So what we're going to talk about today, and this is great, we have a really intimate group, so I want to encourage chatter so we can all share and get your questions out there, because this stuff can be dry as a bone. It's basic stuff, but when you're in the thick of writing, when your brain is somewhere else and you're going the creative route, it's tough to pull it back to the analytical and the organization side of things. That's just not your natural inclination. So if we can set up a process that works for you, and each and every one of you, you're different. All of your processes are going to be different. How you respond to it is going to be different. So what we need to do is figure out what crunchy nuggets here you can take back to set up your process that you're going to do automatically all the time. Like I said, I'm not an author, not one bit, but my language is numbers. So all of our clients, we help them translate what their business is trying to tell them. What is the tale their business wants them to know? And we set up the process so that numbers can be organized, because numbers like to be organized. They like a repeatable process. They like stability and routine. And they will tell you the accurate, valuable knowledge when they have these routine, almost mundane processes in place. So what we're going to talk about are just some things to think about, some things to do. We're not going to get nitty-gritty because I want everyone to stay awake. And towards the end, at the very end, there will be a QR code where you'll have a link to templates that we use and detailed instructions of how to do some of the more manual processes, as well as checklists. I'm a checklist girl. Without that, my life is just a mess. So there'll be a QR code. We ask for your email. We don't spam with email. That's just so we can send you updates because things change. So if I have that, I'll be able to push out things to you. And as a BOGO, I'm partners with Joe Solari in our author world, and you'll have access to all of his slides and all of his templates from everything that he's done here as well. So it's a 2-for-1 deal. So knowledge is power, and accurate knowledge is just priceless. The way your business talks to you is through numbers. Whenever those numbers are accurate, whenever they're firing on all cylinders, they provide so much valuable information. It's not just that you're doing this to get your tax return done, that year-end sprint to get a report to a poor tax accountant who's overworked and not really looking at your stuff for opportunities. They're just looking to fill out a form. So it's up to you to look at your numbers to see, what is my business doing? What can my business do better? The author world is interesting. It's different than any other world I've worked in. Your cash flows are different. You're lucky enough to know what cash is coming in the next 2 months. But you've got to spend a lot of money today before you can get to that cash. So understanding where your cash is going, is that the most efficient use of your cash at this time? And what's coming up in the next couple months makes this a routine process and not a cash fire drill. We don't like those, not one bit. And then once we get through the process of wrangling all this information, it builds the foundation for a strong business that you can build upon. So every time you need information, it's not a fire drill. and an adventure to find out where I put the napkin when I wrote that piece of information down. So the first thing that we do, if you take anything out of our chat today, the one thing I would ask is that everything for your business is separate from you, the person. That your business has its own checking, its own credit card, its own PayPal, and to keep it separate. I know we're all chasing points. We all like those rewards. But for the health of your business and to make this easy, and that's what we're looking for, easy, we need to separate it out. And what should go through those accounts? Income, all the income from the business, whichever way you make it. If you do things through Amazon, if you sell merchandise and it comes through PayPal or Stripe, you want to make sure we pull that all into the one checking account just for the business. So what expenses go through here? Anything that is ordinary and necessary to run your business. So in a perfect world, no personal expenses would come through here. No shoes, no, I've seen a lot of things go through these accounts. And there's usually a reason, but we just want to make sure it's ordinary and necessary. So what's the first thing we do is we need to figure out how to gather all this data. And we're going to talk about numbers first, and then we'll move into file structures and processes to make this a routine event whenever something happens that you need to save something for your business and to make it efficient and easy. So first you need to gather your numbers. You need to create that repeatable process that will help your business tell that tale. Well, the easiest thing to do is use a Quicken or a QuickBooks. And I like those because reports can be printed to give to somebody, to do your tax returns, to give to a mortgage lender when you want to get a loan, a car loan. They ask for these. So that way you could actually get data coming out. Quicken is more personal. Like you can almost use Quicken for your own life, your own personal life. Sometimes it's easier to do and just have it focus on the business accounts. Bless you. QuickBooks is more business focused. It lets you see under the hood as to how things are structured, your assets, your liabilities. It can get very technical. Quicken, you can set up yourself without any problem. QuickBooks, I would advise to get it right the first time, to pay a QuickBooks bookkeeper $50 and have them set it up for you, and then take it over from there. You'll know that it's set up the way it should be, that income is income and expenses are expenses, and it'll make it easy for you to allocate transactions going forward. Because what'll happen is you're going to connect that separate bank account, that separate checking, that separate credit card, and maybe not PayPal, I'll talk about that in a second, but you connect that and these transactions come in automatically. And it's like, okay, I paid my editor. That goes into the editing expense. I paid for cover art, that goes into cover art. I had a meal with another author, that goes into meals. And if you do this, hopefully on a regular basis, you'll have good information at your fingertips and be able to look and see, is this what I thought this would be? Why is my advertising higher? And then look down the road and go, okay, my advertising's higher, my income didn't go higher, what's going on? So by doing this more often, you're able to gather that information. Okay.
So if Quicken is more for personal use, is it robust enough to use for what we're doing business-wise here, or?
That's a great question. So with any of this stuff, and even with all of the other sessions, I mean, you need to understand who you are as an author and what you're willing to do. Some folks just aren't willing to go the QuickBooks route just because it's just too overwhelming at that time, but they need something. So if you're in it, if you're looking to grow, I would say do QuickBooks. spend the $50. The monthly fee is probably around $25 a month. That could be cost prohibitive for some. And the more advanced you get with all the different QuickBooks variations, the more expensive it gets. But if you're building this to grow, and I hope all of you are, then that would be well worth your time in order to get the good information. Now, if you're not quite there yet, or you love a good Excel spreadsheet, you know, we have templates that are available to all of you whenever you snap the QR code that will allow you to have a template to download transactions right from your bank, right from your credit cards, and allocate them out. And the way I've set it up is that it mirrors what Schedule C would be like on your tax return. So that way you can allocate it, and then when you give it to somebody, it's ready to go. What I would suggest is you do this monthly, at a minimum quarterly. And we like the quarters because the IRS likes to get some of their money each quarter. And this is a good routine to get into so you understand how much income you have and what is your tax liability. If you do it yearly, you're just missing a huge opportunity to understand what your business is trying to tell you and to do something and to pivot if you need to. So knowledge is power. It is some good stuff. So we just need to make it easy. Okay, so first we gather the data. Next, we have the opportunity not just to keep it in a report for our tax person, but we have the opportunity to take a look at it and see what is our business trying to tell us? What is the tale of our business? These are some of the things that we look at. First and foremost, whenever, each month, when I go through all of our clients, these are the hot points we look at. We look at advertising. I've seen advertising creep up without sales creeping up. I've seen advertising go down, spending is shut off, ads are shut off for whatever reason, and income stays the same. I mean, it depends on where you are in your business cycle, where you are in your author cycle, launching, not launching. There are so many different factors, and your worlds change almost every day. That is something we always keep an eye on, because it can get out of control very quickly. Contractor spend, as you're building your business and you're pulling more people into your world, sometimes that too can get a little out of hand. You want to push as much stuff off to others to do so you can focus on your writing. But there's a balance. There's that balance where when more cash is going out to others than coming into you. That's worth taking a look at and seeing, okay, what can I automate? What can I combine? What do I absolutely really need? One of the things I do, because I use QuickBooks for everybody, is I run a report that prints out the year by month. So I can see trends. I can see what's going on. Is income going up? Is it coming down? What are some factors that could be affecting income? Is it a month thing? Is it, did Amazon Day affect me? Did back to school affect my sales? Am I getting a summer bump because I write beach romance? Just what's going on? And that helps track the progression. If we have too many months where we're going down, we take a good hard look and see do we not have launches? Do we have, is the advertising aimed where it should be aimed and hitting the right audiences to make this purchase? And an interesting thing too, because you have the 2-month lag, the expenses that you spend today, you don't see the income for that for 2 months. So September cash in the door reflects July's expenses. You spent money in July, perhaps to get those sales in 2 months later. So it's almost like you've got to move income back 2 months to really see, I spent this money and this is what it earned for me. So that type of report, a month over month, helps analyze that progression even better. And once you really get into this, you can do year over year.
My question is, what is the 2-month delay? Is that when Kindle Unlimited plays, or?
That's when Amazon pays.
Okay.
So. Mhm. Yeah. That's correct. The question that was asked was, who is it that pays 2 months after the actual sales? And that is the e-retailers for ebooks. ACX pays, the audiobooks pays 1 month after. So that's our only difference. Now, if you use Stripe or you do anything on your own website, you get that income comes in immediately as soon as that transaction is made. So you can set things up where you have income coming in from all different sources at all different times. So that way your cash flow has different options. Okay. And lastly, enable a look forward. I'm all about planning. Once you have the process down for how we're gathering information, and once you have an understanding of what your numbers are doing, when you know cash is coming in, you can plan for that. You can plan to have a launch on a certain day and make a certain month and make sure you've got the cash to do the advertising you want to do. Or when you're writing a book and you know you need editing and you know you need a cover, that you have the cash available to do it. You can plan this out over your launch strategy for a year. And that way you have no cash surprises, no cash surprises, and it's a more predictable world. And that's what this is all about, is making your cash, your money, your processes routine and predictable. Now, each and every client that we start doing a forward look for, we always change it. We get into the first quarter and life happens, and that's okay. That's okay. But if you go down this path, I would definitely suggest a process of looking at this quarterly to see what changes you need to make. You know, that launch you were going to do in June is now pushed back to August. Well, that affects cash. That pushes all the cash, all the sales back from when you first expected it. So in order to keep your business humming and keep that cash flowing, look at this in at least quarterly. So we talked about how to gather, how to analyze. Now, what are we doing with this stuff? Where are we putting that napkin that we wrote our login credentials down on, and how are we storing this information? So we can keep them on our own computer. We can use Dropbox. We can use, my business was started back in 2011, so I actually have paper files. I haven't scanned them in yet and uploaded them, but I know where my paper files are, and they're in it. It's nifty home. Now, whenever you start businesses and go through all this stuff, you can get most things electronically. So I would suggest this is the skeleton that we start with our clients, and then customize it for what their business needs. And what are some of the things that can go in there? So first, you want to keep all of your organization documents for your business. So let me stop for a second. How many of you are sole proprietors? Okay, so you do everything on your Social Security number in Schedule C. How many are LLCs? Okay. And do we have any advanced SCorps in here? Oh, look at you.
I'm doing. I'm doing a sole proprietorship with with a EIC?
EIN.
EIN, whatever. Yeah.
That means you're using a government-issued identification number instead of your own Social Security number. And that's also an option if you don't want to put your Social Security number out there for all of your Amazon and everyone who pays you to have. That's perfectly reasonable. So other organization documents, now most of you are sole proprietors, and our LLC folks, You're going to have organization documents from the state where you organized. And if you're LLC folks, it depends on what your state is about, but you may need to register as a doing business as. Each state is different. So please understand the rules of your state and actually the rules of your county, because you may need a business license just to sit there and write your books in your county. So if we have one place to put all the organization documents, your EIN letter from the IRS, and for our SCorp friends, your approval letter for your SCorp from the IRS, you'll refer to that time and time again. So to have it in a single place where it's not an adventure to find it, you'll thank your future self for taking the 15 minutes now to set this stuff up. Accounting reports and receipts. So the biggest question I get all the time is, what do I do for receipts? Save them. Start a file in your accounting file by year. And every time you pay somebody, put that invoice automatically into that folder. Whenever you make a payment that's not on Amazon, save that email into that folder. Just do it automatically as soon as it happens, because you're usually on your computer when you're making a purchase. Do it automatically and put it in there. Yes?
If we have our bank account connected to our filing system, do we need to also have the receipts, or is the record of the bank account information sufficient?
Good question. Sometimes you change bank accounts. And when you change, sometimes you lose that information. So each month I would say download your bank accounts, or quarterly, or download your bank statements. But if the IRS is ever looking at your return, they need more proof than just the credit card statement or the bank statement. Specifically for payments to people, for larger items, if you're buying a computer, you definitely want to keep that receipt. If anything routine and mundane, like where there's a list of it, like your Amazon account, that's chock full of good stuff that you buy all the time. I would say you don't have to keep that as a receipt because it's there, and that account is not going anywhere. But anything else, Best Buy, you buy a monitor, you buy software, save the receipt to this folder. And then when the year ends, you start the next year, and you just keep on going. Next, for contractor and employee information. How many do co-writes with others? Okay. Do you guys have an agreement in place about your co-writes? I see a head shaking. Excellent. So all good partnerships end some way, somehow. You want to make sure that you understand how that's going to end before you start. So as a little public service announcement, I'm all for papering and understanding. When you do co-writes, how are you going to split revenue? What happens when one author wants to stop? How are you going to advertise? Is this going to fall more on one person to take care of things or the other? And if you don't want to get fancy with a contract, at least put something in an email that says, hey, this is how we're going to run this. So at least you have ground rules. And that would be the folder where you would keep stuff like that. If you have folks working for you, you definitely want to get a non-disclosure agreement from anybody touching your worlds. Your cover people, your editors, your readers, your advanced teams. You want them to sign something that says they're going to keep your product, your methods secret. You're trusting them to do something for you. They've got to make a promise back to you that they'll treat your information with respect, and they'll do the things that you've asked them to do, and then not take it any further. So those are the things we would keep in number 3. You can also use this structure to make your own book process easier. We have some authors who have a file for each and every book, and in there is the original manuscript, the cover art, versions, and anything pertinent to that specific book. It also could be all the copyright information that you should get as well. And lastly, we'd like to have one central place for marketing, for keywords, for campaigns, for your marketing plan, just so you know everything that has to do with your business, with your launches, with your continued efforts is in just one place. Now, there are several other different categories you can have. You do you. You know, this is for you, how you work, how you want to run your business. I would just say within each of those files, separate it by year so that you can keep track of what's going on as the years go by and it doesn't become too cumbersome. Okay, lastly, we're getting into the little crunchy nugget time, where here are some of the tools that I use to keep myself sane. We work with a lot of clients, and after a while, all that information just swirls. So for each and every client, including my own business, I have an Excel sheet that lists out all the pertinent information that I could use at one time and need to get to it easily. So name of the business, type of business, what credit cards are we using for this business, what bank account are we using, any EINs, any business licenses, anything that if I were to get hit by a bus, somebody could pick up and deal with my business. Now, on a sad note, I had a client pass away last week. He was only 42. And we had all this set up for him. And his wife is going to be very grateful whenever she's got to go deal with this. So this is also a good part of your estate plan, so that if something ever happens, someone can come in without the adventure of trying to dig for information and take care of what needs to be taken care of. So how long do I keep all this stuff? So the IRS, who is my authority on everything, says 3 years. Keep your returns, keep all your stuff 3 years. But then there's an asterisk after that says, yeah, 3 years is good, but if you underreport your income by 25%, then all bets are off and we get to audit you forever. So my advice is keep everything for the length of your business. And if you set it up by years within those categories, it's just easy to add on a folder with the next year and keep on rolling. Organization information, you keep forever. Receipts, when you set it up by year, it's easy to keep and it's not cumbersome. So also one thing that I do for everybody is I keep a calendar. What has to be done monthly, you know, we allocate transactions, we print reports. What we need to do quarterly, we reconcile bank accounts. We see where we are, if we're in a net income position, if we're making money, how much do I have to give to the IRS? And that happens, estimated payments happen quarterly. So you want to have an understanding, because that's all about cash flow. You don't want to wait till the end of the year and find you owe the IRS $20,000 that you didn't bank on. So if we do this quarterly, you're not surprised at the end. And we talked about this too before, about forward planning, looking ahead. How is this cash going to be used? Where is it coming from? How do we run this business and use this cash most efficiently? I had a client who had an addiction to covers. There were 20 covers. Books weren't even written yet, and the covers were done. And of course, you know, things change. And that money is just for naught, because those covers will never be used because the series changed, and instead of a witch, there's a warlock. And so use your cash to get what you need to get your next launch out. Efficient use. Okay, so here's our QR code. And like I mentioned, you get the BOGO of not only my stuff for this presentation, all the templates, the calendar, the task list, and and this presentation, and you also get Joe Solari's stuff from all of his presentations throughout this week. All for the low, low price of $19.99. Just kidding. So we'll use your emails just if we have updates. You know, if I update a template or I figure out a better way to do something, we have your emails. I can send it out to you. Also in this presentation at the beginning is my email address. So if you have questions or would like a tweak to a template or a different way of doing things, feel free to email me. I'm happy to engage and interact and help in any way I can. So we've been great with questions throughout this. Do we have any more questions going on?
Actually, I have a simple question, if you'll allow me.
Sure.
When do you consider income payments from Amazon for which year? Like, I've made the ad spend in December, but I don't get the income until the next year.
Right.
So I do not count any income until I get it in that January 1 to December 31, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So all of you are on what's called a cash basis. And that means you record either the income or the expense when the cash hits your bank account or leaves your bank account. So even though you had sales in December, you didn't get that cash in December. You're going to get it in February. So you are going to account for it in February and not December.
Okay. I'm assuming that all of this can be written off as a business expense, except for the fact that I'm not paying for it through my business. I'm paying for it all through my pocket because I'm not making enough money yet for paying for this conference. How does that work with the taxes and stuff?
Well, my first suggestion is get a separate checking account. Okay. So at least you can track everything through one place. So you can deduct expenses up until you've made income. You know, if you've made $1,000 of income and this conference was $2,000, you can deduct up to that $1,000, and that takes you back to zero for income. The IRS laws that we talk about here are as of this very minute. They seem to change weekly as well. So whatever we talk about today may be very different later. But since you're still in startup phase, it's good to keep track of those expenses so that when you really are making money, you can take these startup costs and write off a chunk of it each of the years where you're making more money. And just spread that over, I think it's 3 years, 5 years. It depends on the income in your business and how much you've actually accrued in these startup costs. Good?
Okay, my royalties I have royalties, which is good, but they're low enough that so far my husband's tax withholding has covered
Okay.
my income from my sole proprietorship. What point do I need to start doing quarterly taxes?
Okay. Are you tracking all your expenses? Okay. So you know exactly when your income is positive enough. And since your husband's covering you now, there's going to be a point in time where you're making more and it won't. Now, this also depends on your specific tax situation, if you have a standard deduction or if you itemize, where you have enough other taxes, mortgage interest, and things like that to lower your taxable amount. Your standard? Okay. So I would say for that, and remember too, for sole proprietors, for LLCs and SCorps, right now we enjoy 20% deduction. That's called the qualified business income deduction. So whatever your income is, say you made $100, you can lop off 20% right off the top. So it's only $80 that you're going to pay taxes on. So taking that into consideration, where you take your income, you lop off 20%, and then you factor in your standard deduction, you should really start looking at quarterlies probably once you hit around $30,000, because your standard deduction is covered now, and your income is, yes. Now, for all of our LLC and sole proprietor folks, your income is not only subject to regular income tax based on your tax bracket, But you also have the pleasure of paying employment taxes of 15.3%. That's a shock to some that, holy cow, I am paying almost 35%, and that's without even factoring in a state. So just be prepared, that's 15.3%. And it's because of that tax that SCorps make sense. When you have an SCorp, the downside is you now need to run payroll. The upside is any net income you have left isn't subject to that 15.3%. So when you get big enough, and big enough, I mean, and this is changing as tax laws change, but to make that work, you need at least $50,000 in income after expenses, because you have the added increase of payroll periodically, you have an extra tax return for your SCorp, and those things can add up quick.
Joe was the one who turned me on to doing the SCorp with the C. Hi, Joe. Hi. And he helped me with my taxes last year because I took his course, which is really good and outlines a lot of basics that you're covering. But I don't know how a QR code works. I like menus, so they're like, just scan the menu. So how does this QR code work? I have it on my camera now, but I don't know what to do with it.
Do you have a QR scanner app on your phone?
No.
Okay. When
So you just hit the little button at the top. It opens up a web page.
Do it again, and I'll walk you through it.
Okay.
I love helping hands. Thank you.
So we had another question?
Okay, my question, you had mentioned something about a separate PayPal.
Yes.
So I'm in the beginning stages, so most of my, how I pay my bills is through my private, my private bank account. I just pay my bills. I'm not making enough, so I'm not making enough money yet. So I'm currently using my PayPal account that's attached to a personal credit card. So can you talk a little bit more about PayPal and why that's important to separate it out?
Okay. I hate PayPal for a multitude of reasons. Not only the fees, but it doesn't play well with QuickBooks. It's very easy to lose transactions if you don't have PayPal set up so that each purchase you make hits a specific credit card. It nets things together and it just makes a gigantic mess. So for your situation, just starting out, you definitely want to open a separate checking account. And if you don't have a business name or LLC or whatever, that's fine. Okay.
So I don't like to give out my routing information from my bank to PayPal. I don't want to do that, so I have my credit card attached to it, and that's
Okay.
why. So if I'm not going to use PayPal, or you don't recommend it, what's another app that you would recommend for, because that's how my cover artist gets her money, that's how my editor gets her money,
So does your separate checking account have a debit card?
yes.
Okay. Have that debit card put into PayPal and use that.
I see. Okay.
And just
all right.
get into the habit of double checking whenever you do a payment that it's hitting the right card.
Okay. All right. Now, you said it does not feed into QuickBooks?
It does, but it's wonky.
All right.
So if you have a separate dedicated bank account credit card, those transactions will come into QuickBooks anyways.
Okay. All right. Yep.
So-
Good point. Yes.
So your job is just to make sure that you hit the right credit card when you're making the payment.
Yep.
And then
Thank
it'll
you.
all flow.
Yep. Thank you.
Sure.
Last question?
Okay. I pay my cover artist and my editor through PayPal.
Okay.
Do I need to give them a I-9, or can I claim it's just already counted on PayPal?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay. So do you pay them friends or family or through an invoice?
Invoice.
Excellent. If you use PayPal and you pay them through an invoice, someone's getting hit with fees. But also that relieves you of the responsibility of issuing a 1099 in January for all
done it
that is earned by that vendor the previous year.
So I don't have to do the 1099 for them.
If you use invoices.
I use them.
If you pay them friends and family to get around the fees, then it's your responsibility to do the 1099.
Perfect.
Because they're thinking that's you reimbursing your brother-in-law for tickets, not income.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. And there's some easy applications out there. If you do find yourself in a situation, it's over $600, that's the limit. So if your editor, cover artist, virtual assistant, whoever, makes over $600, you need to send them a 1099. I use tax 1099 to do that. It's pretty easy.
So that goes back to me again. So if I have 4, 5, or 6 or 7 covers, that's going to put me over the $600. Do I need to give them a 1099?
Well,
Since it's going through PayPal?
If it's going through PayPal, you do not. If you're paying it through an invoice, you do not.
Okay,
Because
it doesn't matter the amount that I'm at.
Correct.
Total. Okay.
Correct. For PayPal, it's the method in which you pay them. If you pay them through the invoice, fees are taken out, PayPal has the responsibility for issuing the 1099.
Perfect.
So I have vendors out of the United States. If they're out of the United States, I don't have to do a 1099, right?
No, but you do have to get a W-8.
Okay.
And a W-8, I swear, a W-9 is for U.S. folks, U.S. vendors. It gets you their EIN or their Social Security number so you can issue a 1099. If they're overseas, and we have a lot of vendors who are overseas, ask them to fill out a W-8 that certifies they're pledging to you they're out of the country and that you do not need to collect tax. You do not need to send them a 1099. That just covers you. Thank you, Lisa. We're out of time. Thanks, everyone. This is fantastic.